that's already shown us huge benefit.
Disrupting some industries.
So when we first started Warner Brothers, things like digital transformation and these terms like this didn't exist.
I'm going to send this to all owners in the country.
To 200 models in the end.
Prakash, you're an industry veteran. You've witnessed and contributed to its evolution. What are some of the most significant changes you've seen in the past 10 years?
If we were to take one technology in particular, I would say BIM is probably the one that's had the biggest impact. When I first started in the industry, it was something that was very niche and almost like a science project or something that's done in a university, you know. And now, especially in this region, it's become almost ubiquitous, right? People don't do certain scales or projects without BIM and without a BIM philosophy.
So to me, one of the signs of the change is people having job titles such as yours. What's the job description for a digital project delivery lead? What do you do every day?
In terms of what I do now, I get to have a lot of fun. I get to experiment and look at new technologies. I get to speak to practitioners and people understand some of the pain points that they're having. I get to try and put those two things together to utilize technology to solve some of the problems that these guys are having. But no 2 days are the same.
Yes, I'm sure you're not going to be bored anytime soon.
No.
I really agree that we're seeing an acceleration of digitization of construction. In AECOM's perspective, what does a fully digitalized project look like?
For me, a fully digitized project is one where we're not using any paper. The admin tasks are kept to a minimum. Approvals are all done electronically. There's no printing and scanning. And then the digital transformation, which would follow on from that, is actually looking at each of these processes and seeing where we can cut steps out, where we can start doing things, not just doing them in a digital way. I think we're pretty close. I'll give you an example. On all of our supervision projects now that we do, we're using Autodesk BIM 360 Field to do things like inspections and snagging. So we're trying to remove all paper from the inspection process. And that's already shown us huge benefits. Depending on the complexity of the project or which task you're trying to do, we're seeing between 30 and 60% time saving across the whole process. You know, if you were to force me to put a time scale on it, within the next year to 18 months, I think we'll start seeing projects which we could consider, depending on the
fully
definition.
Digitized.
Fully digitized.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do you see machine learning changing construction, and are there any applications that you're currently working on within AECOM?
So as an industry, we've been capturing data as we move to electronic document management systems, as we move to digitized paper-based processes. We're all of a sudden capturing terabytes and terabytes of data and information. But as an industry and us as a company as well, we're guilty of it. We're very poor at doing anything with that data. Now, you look at modern commerce and modern sort of companies, the ones that are doing well are the ones that have managed to monetize the data, right? You look at the Googles and the Netflix and the Facebooks of the world, right? They're creating value from data, and I think that there's a huge sort of value proposition for us as an industry to start utilizing this data.
Let's talk about Warner Brothers, one of your regional flagship projects.
Yeah.
Now, AECOM has an extensive portfolio of theme park projects worldwide, including the Ferrari World on Yas Island. How did you use that experience to deliver on your Warner Brothers scope?
One of the advantages of working for an organization like AECOM, which has this global diversity, means that we can import all of this knowledge and skills into the region. So when we first started Warner Brothers, things like digital transformation and these terms like this didn't exist, and BIM was very nascent in the region. So we were bringing the expertise and the knowledge from delivering both theme park projects and BIM projects around the world, and utilizing that experience to enhance our services for Warner Brothers here.
Prakash, in your opinion, what's the main difference between working on a residential and a theme park project?
Good question. So complexity, right, is the simple answer. when we're working on residential buildings or hotels, you get repeatability on certain floors, you know,
Yes.
and not exactly copy and paste, but there's a general repeatability and in terms of the use of the space and things like that. But you can imagine a theme park has different zones, and each of the zones has different uses. So there's the complexity in the design itself. And then in the build, right, you don't have your traditional subcontractors or the traditional stakeholders. Here in a theme park, you have various rides which come from different vendors who have different experiences. And especially we found this because this was one of the first BIM-enabled projects that we did in the region. We were on a learning curve, and at the same time, we were trying to bring all of these sub-consultants and subcontractors on the learning curve with us, on this journey with us. And there you get a different set of complexities arising from that.
For such complexity and uniqueness, computational design could offer significant productivity gains. Did you consider or implement computational design on Warner Brothers?
Actually, we did, and again, this was at a time where computational design wasn't as ubiquitous as it's becoming now, right? I think that we're in this age now with things like Dynamo, where we're able to utilize computational design much more effectively. So if you've ever been to Warner Brothers, you see some of the theming elements, the rock work and things like that. Those were modeled utilizing parametric design techniques.
So you've mentioned that BIM evolved on the project. You've seen the tools, the ecosystem, and the skill set increase. What scale are we talking about here?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So this was one of the first projects that we took from the design phase through construction and into operations. Okay. We ended up with close to 200 models in the end, because of the way that it was being built and the way that the contractor split the models up. So you can imagine the challenge in coordinating and managing that volume of models. For me, the most exciting part of it was the fact that we took it through the whole life cycle, or through the process, right? And as we were discussing earlier, the biggest value, I think, from BIM actually comes in utilizing the information that you've picked up from the design stage phase into the construction phase and using it for your operations. You know, the biggest cost of an asset is in its operational phase. So making small changes, or what might seem like small changes during the design and the construction phase, will have huge implications and impacts in the operational stage.
Prakash, thank you so much for your insight and for your time.
My pleasure.
And thank you from Industry Spectrum, where we discuss with industry innovators projects that are shaping the skyline of the region.